Okay.
Proposition 301. Proposition 301 would transfer money from the state's land conservation fund to the state general fund. It would not wipe out the state land conservation fund. The fund would still be there, but it would swipe about $125 million from that fund into the state general fund. And last time you checked, there's a giant budget deficit down there, and the legislators are eager to get to be able to use that money for the general fund deficit. There is a trade-off. Those funds are being used currently by municipalities mainly with a matching provision. If a municipality wants to acquire some land and turn it into a park, they can put up, say, $4 million, and it'll be matched by $4 million from the state land conservation fund, giving them $8 million with which to purchase land and then hold it. You do whatever they want with it. Ostensibly, they're not going to turn it into developments. The idea is that they turn it into a park or turn it into open space or wilderness or something. And so there's a conflict. People who want city governments to expand and to buy land and whatever are not gonna. Well, if that's your most important, if that's what you really want government doing, then you're probably not going to want that money to go into the legislature to be spent on the things the legislature is spending on. If your priorities are in education, healthcare, some of these other things the government spends money on, you're probably going to like this one. Yes?
My main concern with either one of these, 301 or 302, is this is how we got into this situation in the first place, because they kept budgeting for more money than we brought in, and they swept funds in order to accommodate it, then didn't reduce the budget the next year, went ahead and increased again, even though revenue was falling. And the fact that they're able to go in and sweep these things, I mean, look at Social Security, and I know this is out of this jurisdiction, but it's the principle of you allocate money for a certain reason, and then the legislators come along and go, oh, gee, we're short, and we need this money over here, and we're not using it here right now. I really think that there's a problem with that mentality that we need to switch.
You are absolutely right about the mentality of using these one-time funding solutions to keep propping up
and
state
then
general fund
continuing
spending.
to build,
That's absolutely a problem. And when I look at this one, I'm very divided. I mean, a lot of times when I look at a proposition that takes a pot of money out of one government pot, or takes money out of one government pot and puts it into another government pot, I usually just don't care. The taxpayer is not going to get any relief from this thing. So that's usually my position on it, is I just don't care. And you do have a good point, is that the legislature in the past and the governor, they have to some extent gotten into the current budget deficit problem because they used one-time monies and they swept funds from a lot of places and didn't make the cuts early when they're easier to make before the spending compounds with these spending formulas. They actually could have, if they had not swept funds from different places, they could have gotten our problem solved, possibly solved, but because they're not solved. But in any case, we'd be closer to finding a budget solution if they had not done that sort of behavior. Yes, sir.
My inclination on this is a vote no, and force the state legislature and the government, the state government, to reduce its staff. We got it, because all they're going to do is create more spending. They're going to spend that without any reservation.
Right now, I got to level with you. This is going to be completely obvious. The state legislature is desperate for money, except for a small handful of real super conservatives. Most people who are down there at that legislature are eager to find any money. I mean, they're going to have to come back and cut, but they're eager to find money wherever they can find it. And so one of the arguments that people will use is, given the legislative reality, if they don't get $125 million from here, they will be looking for some sort of fee increase or some sort of tax increase somewhere else. Now, I think that's a bad choice. Hit me with a bat or hit me with the motorcycle chain. I understand that's not a good trade-off, but you will hear from some somewhat conservative legislators that that this will keep them from grabbing another pot of money somewhere
For
else.
the moment.
No, all they need.
Right, for the moment.
I'm a small business owner and I'm desperate for money too.
Yeah, hell
And
no.
it's not going to Phoenix and it's not going to pay somebody else's free ride. Cut that $125 million.
Which is why you and I voted against Prop 100. Yesterday.
Well, the other side of the coin is if you vote yes for it, you know, to transfer the money, you keep the cities from spending money they don't have.
Yeah,
Find
and
out.
there's trade-offs here.
The
Yes.
cities could cut their government too.
Yeah.
Just for the camera, he made an interesting point, which is you're going to keep cities possibly from spending money because they won't have matching
Because
funds.
they don't have the incentive for the
So if you vote for this, if you vote for, what is it, 301, you might help some city governments not spend money, a little bit of money. It's interesting. There's a lot of ways this will cut. Yes, sir?
So, just to clarify, if these get swept, is this a one-time sweep, and then
One-time
next year they're funded again?
One-time sweep. Yes. Now, the state, I need to go back and look at this because the State Land Conservation Fund, I believe, ends at some point soon. It's actually it's not an indefinite program, so
It's a sunset type.
it's a program that sunsets. So, and I can't remember when the deadline is, so I don't know, but I think it's within the next few years. So this thing could come back and then just have a very short lifespan after that.
And then with 302, is it the same? Would it be funded next year then? Or it would be?
302, we'll get to 302 in a moment,
Okay.
just to be good at the YouTube. Joy?
All right, I was under the impression that the legislature balanced the budget presuming or hoping that 301 and 302 would pass. And I think we've been assured that if they don't pass, that there will be cuts in those amounts because otherwise the budget wouldn't be balanced. Am I correct in that?
Right. There will be, right now it looks like there will, if Prop 301 and 302 do not pass, it looks like the legislature will have to make something on the order of about $400 million worth, $450 million worth of cuts, further cuts, or start digging for other revenues somewhere else, or try to figure out a way to borrow it, or But they'll have another $450 million gap roughly that they'll have to fill. By the way, they never did balance the budget. I mean, the truth is they never balanced the budget. If the combination right now, it looks like it's somewhere like $700 or $800 million hole that they're going to have to fill if this thing doesn't pass, of which $450 million of that hole would be from the failure of these two propositions, and the other 300 some odd million, depending on how you count it, $400 million of a hole is just a structural hole that never got fixed, no matter what. Even though we passed a tax increase and and we've been sweeping funds or whatever, this budget was never truly balanced. The fiscal 11 budget was never truly balanced, and even you've probably seen some of the accounting. I mean, it basically balanced in today's terminology means they look like temporarily they have enough of a cash flow to make it work, but the cash flow went away. So, and I don't think they really had it ever to begin with. I don't think it was ever truly balanced, even in a cash flow sense. Yes, sir.
Let's remember that sometimes a yes or a no question is the wrong question. Doesn't make any sense. Let's not worry about it.
Yeah, that's the, okay, are you going to hit me with a baseball bat or the motorcycle chain? It's like, okay. Yes, sir.
Do you think funding land conservation might possibly force us all into a city one day? If you keep conserving land, are people going to be able to move out into these urban areas that they want to live in?
That's kind of a big question. I understand where you're going with that. Like in a certain sense, that's a huge topic for a huge event, and you need to get a guy named Randall O'Toole from Cato to come speak to you on that. That whole question of smart growth, if the idea of creating these urban boundaries, the people who are on the heavy environmental side of these issues, they would like to basically trap us all in very tightly defined metro areas, have us live in high-rises and ride light rail. The reality with the Land Conservation Fund, this is not very much money we're talking about. This is not the kind of money that's going to enable cities to do a Portland or to do a,
For now, so it's a foot in the door, right?
Say again?
I said for now, but it's a foot in the door, right?
Ideally, yeah, if you were a hardcore environmentalist of the kind that seems to be prevalent today, you would want to have this same sort of fund, but with billions of dollars in it, spending hundreds of millions every year to acquire land and try to box people into urban settings.
Which is a natural progression.
Certainly, and you just look at Portland, they've done everything they can to try to cajole people into riding the light rail and to try to get them to live near the light rail, and driving a car in downtown Portland is absolutely a miserable experience. Should we go to 302?